In the Cathedral of Our Lady, white roses intertwined with crystal chandeliers in a radiant display. Dressed in a wedding gown worth 3 million, I stood at the entrance to the dressing room, watching the two people embracing inside. "Jason, are you sure you want to marry that woman?" Winnie's voice carried a sob. "We've been in love for 8 years, how could you abandon me for a business marriage?" Jason held her tightly. "Winnie, I'm marrying Roxie only to annex the White Cat Group. Once I obtain all of White Cat's shares, I'll divorce her and marry you. But I'm afraid she'll cling to you. She's just a naive heiress, I have 1,000 ways to make her leave voluntarily." He sneered. "White Cat has truly invited a wolf into the house this time." My fingers clenched the bouquet tightly, the thorns of the white roses piercing my palm, blood slowly seeping out. 8 years of affection turned out to be a meticulously orchestrated deception. The makeup artist urged from outside, "Miss Roxie, the wedding is about to begin." I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. Jason and Winnie separated instantly. He wore a perfect smile on his face. "Roxie, you look truly beautiful today." Winnie, with red-rimmed eyes, said, "Sister Roxie, I'm sorry, I shouldn't be crying at your wedding. It's just that thinking about how hard it might be to see brother Jason in the future makes me reluctant." Watching their performance, I calmly said, "It's fine, tears are the best blessing." Jason approached, gently stroking my cheek. "Why is your face so pale? Are you too tired? Perhaps I'm too excited." I forced a smile. His hand was warm, but my heart was as cold as ice. The wedding march played, and I walked down the red carpet arm in arm with my father. "Roxie, Dad is handing you over to Jason, I hope you two will be happy forever." Father's eyes brimmed with tears. "The White Cat enterprise will rely on you two working together as husband and wife from now on." I nodded, a wave of bitterness in my heart. If father knew he was handing his daughter to a wolf in sheep's clothing, what expression would he have? Jason stood before the priest, his handsome face gleaming in the sunlight. But what I saw was merely a hypocritical mask. "Mr. Jason, do you take Miss Roxie as your wife, to be faithful to her in good times and in bad, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" "I do." His voice was firm and resolute. When it was my turn, I gazed into his deep eyes, the words I had just heard echoing in my mind. "Miss Roxie, do you take Mr. Jason as your husband, to be faithful to him in good times and in bad, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?" Below the stage, Winnie sat in the first row, her eyes filled with jealousy and hatred. The corner of my mouth curled into a cold smile. "I do. Since you want to act, I'll play along to the end." During the ring exchange, Jason whispered in my ear, "From now on, you are my wife." I returned a sweet smile. "Yes, my husband. But you will never know that from this moment, I have already sentenced you to death in my heart." After the wedding, guests flocked to the hotel for the banquet. I excused myself to the restroom, but actually wanted some time alone. In the restroom, I removed my perfect smile, looking at the pale face in the mirror. "Roxie, from today onward, you are no longer that naive heiress." Suddenly, the door was pushed open, and Winnie entered. "Sister Roxie, congratulations." Her smile was even more hypocritical than mine. "But I want to tell you a secret." I turned to look at her. "What secret?" "Brother Jason spent last night at my place." She deliberately puffed out her chest. "He said marrying you is only for White Cat's assets. Once he gets them, he'll divorce you." I looked at her calmly. "And then?" She seemed unprepared for my composure, stunned for a moment. "Aren't you angry?" "Why should I be angry?" I adjusted my skirt. Why argue with someone who's about to die? Winnie's expression changed. "What do you mean?" I approached her, my voice as light as a feather. "Guess." With that, I turned and left the restroom. At the banquet, Jason mingled with business elites from various sectors, toasting triumphantly. Father took the stage to speak. "Today is my daughter's joyous day, and also the beginning of a strong alliance between White Cat Group and Cheaping Group. I believe with Jason's help, White Cat will surely reach new heights." Applause thundered from below. Seeing Father's radiant face, a sourness welled in my heart. "Dad, you've entrusted your life's work to a devil." Jason ascended the stage, taking the microphone. Thank you for your trust, father-in-law. I will take good care of Roxie and do my utmost to help White Cat develop. Another round of applause. I raised my champagne, toasting Jason on stage. He smiled gently at me, his eyes full of affection. But I knew that affection was performed for others. Just like my smile at this moment. Roxie, happy newlywed. Leon approached with a wine glass. I'm sorry I returned late, I almost missed your wedding. Leon was my senior in university. After graduation, he went to develop in the UK and only returned a few days ago. Brother Leon, thank you for coming back specially for my wedding. He looked at me, a complex emotion flashing in his eyes. Roxie, are you truly happy? I was stunned for a moment, then smiled. Of course I'm happy, I married the one I love. He nodded, saying nothing more. But I felt he had sensed something. After the banquet, Jason and I returned to the bridal chamber. It was the love nest he had meticulously arranged for us, filled with rose petals and flickering candlelight. Roxie, you must be tired today? He gently removed my veil. I'm fine. I looked at him calmly. He kissed my forehead, then rest early. With that, he turned to the bathroom. I sat at the dressing table, removing my makeup. The woman in the mirror had eyes as cold as eternal ice. Roxie, the game has just begun. On the second day of our marriage, I deliberately slept until I woke naturally. When I went downstairs, Jason was already having breakfast at the table. Roxie, awake? He put down the newspaper. I had the kitchen prepare your favorite Xiaolongbao. I sat opposite him, thank you. There's an important meeting at the company today, I might return late. As he spoke, he poured milk for me. Next week, I'll take you to the Maldives for our honeymoon, how about that? It's all up to you. I nodded obediently. He smiled contentedly, planting a kiss on my forehead. Then I'll head to the company first. Watching his departing figure, my fingers lightly tapped the table. Jason, do you think I really know nothing? After breakfast, I drove to White Cat Group. As soon as I entered the office, Secretary Jack rushed over anxiously. President Roxie, bad news. Last night, someone maliciously acquired our shares and now holds 30%. I frowned. Who is it? We can't trace it. The other party used an offshore company overseas. Jack was full of anxiety. The stock price has already dropped 2 points, if this continues. I know. I said faintly, bring me the finance department's report. Jack was stunned. President Roxie, aren't you worried? Is worrying useful? I sat down, better to think of solutions than worry. In fact, I knew clearly in my heart that this malicious acquisition was Jason's doing. He couldn't wait to start acting. In the afternoon, Father hurried to the company. Roxie, have you heard about the share acquisition? His expression was grave. I suspect it's a competitor deliberately causing trouble. Dad, who do you think it could be? I asked knowingly. It's very likely Green City Group. They've always eyed our overseas business covetously. Father paced back and forth in the office. It seems we need to devise a countermeasure. Why not ask Jason for help? I probed. Cheaping is powerful. It should help us through this crisis. Father's eyes lit up. Right, how did I not think of that? Jason is now our son-in-law, he'll definitely help. I lowered my eyes, concealing the coldness within. Dad, you're too naive. That evening, when Jason returned home, I was waiting in the living room. Why aren't you asleep yet? He took off his coat and sat beside me. Something happened at the company today, I want to discuss it with you. I snuggled into his arms, my voice carrying a coquettish tone. He gently stroked my long hair. What is it? Tell me. Someone is maliciously acquiring White Cat's shares. Dad is very worried. I looked up at him, tears welling in my eyes. Jason, can you help us? His eyes flickered, then he comforted softly. Don't worry, I'll handle it. Really? I hugged him tightly. I knew you loved me the most. He whispered in my ear, silly, I'm your husband, of course, I must protect you. At that moment, if I didn't know the truth, I might truly be moved by his gentleness. Unfortunately, I knew everything. Early the next morning, I went to Cheaping Group under the pretext of visiting. In Jason's office, I accidentally overheard his conversation with the assistant. "President Jason, how is the share acquisition on White Cat's side going?" "Everything's going smoothly. We expect to gain control next week." Jason's voice smugly rang out. "Then the White Cat will be Cheaping's for the taking. What about Mrs. Roxie? She knows nothing and is still foolishly begging me for help." Jason sneered. "Women really are all idiots." I listened quietly outside the door, fists clenched tightly. After the assistant left, I knocked and entered. "Roxie? Why are you here?" Jason immediately switched to a gentle expression. "I missed you, so I came to see." I walked behind him, gently stroking his shoulders. "Tired from work?" "A bit tired, but seeing you makes it go away." He held my hand. "Sit and accompany me for a while." I sat obediently beside him. "How's the investigation from yesterday?" "We have leads, it should be resolved soon." He held my hand. "Rest assured, with me here, no one can harm White Cat." What melodious lies. "Jason, I love you," I said suddenly. He was stunned, then smiled. "I love you too, Roxie." I looked into his eyes, trying to find a trace of genuine emotion. Unfortunately, there was nothing. In the afternoon, I arranged to meet Winnie at a cafe. She arrived late, her face bearing an arrogant expression. "What does Sister Roxie want with me?" She sat down, not even bothering with basic courtesy. "I want to ask for your help," I said directly. She raised an eyebrow. "What help can I provide?" "Persuade Jason to stop." I looked at her calmly. "Don't target White Cat anymore." She was stunned at first, then laughed. "Sister Roxie, what are you talking about?" "I don't understand." "Still pretending?" I picked up the coffee, taking a shallow sip. "This play has gone on long enough." Winnie's face changed. "You know everything?" "I knew from the beginning." I set down the coffee cup. "Your acting is too poor." She became furious from embarrassment. "If you knew, why did you still marry him?" "Because I want to witness your failure firsthand." I smiled, a smile colder than any expression she had seen. "Winnie, do you think you're very smart?" "What do you mean?" She panicked a bit. "You'll know soon." I stood up. "Right, say hello to Jason for me." After leaving the cafe, I dialed a number. "President Calvin, we can begin." From the other end came a middle-aged man's voice. "Rest assured, Miss Roxie, everything is proceeding as planned." "Jason, do you think only you can play chess?" That evening, when Jason returned home, his face looked very grim. "What's wrong? Work not going well?" I asked with concern. "Nothing, just a minor issue." He forced a smile. "It should be resolved soon." I nodded, not pressing further. But I knew he must have received bad news today. Sure enough, early the next morning, his phone rang incessantly. "What? All those overseas cooperation projects have been cancelled?" His voice carried shock. How could this happen? I silently ate breakfast beside him, as if hearing nothing. "Investigate immediately what exactly happened." He hung up, his expression dark. "Jason, what's wrong?" I pretended concern. "Something at the company, I need to handle it quickly." He hurriedly grabbed the car keys. "Be careful on the road." I lightly kissed his cheek. Watching his departing figure, the corner of my mouth curled into a cold smile. This is just the appetizer. Shortly after Jason left, my phone rang. "Roxie, quick, check the news," came my best friend Suan's exclamation over the phone. I opened my phone. The finance news headline boldly read, "Cheaping Group suffers major setback in overseas projects, market value evaporates by tens of billions." The comment section below the news had exploded. "What's wrong with Cheaping? It was fine yesterday." "Heard it's due to breach of contract, with huge compensation." "Isn't Jason a business prodigy?" How could he make such a low-level mistake? I turned off the phone with a faint smile. In the afternoon, Father hurried to Cheaping Group to find Jason. I followed, saying it was to comfort my husband. The atmosphere in Jason's office was oppressively dreadful. "Jason, are you okay?" Father asked with concern, "Is what the news says true?" Jason nodded, looking exhausted. "There is indeed a problem, but I'll handle it well." "Do you need my help?" Father said without hesitation. "Although White Cat's strength is limited, we'll help as much as we can." Seeing Father's sincere demeanor, my heart was filled with mixed emotions. "Dad, you're too kind." A complex emotion flashed in Jason's eyes. "Thank you, father-in-law, but not needed for now." "Then about White Cat?" Father hesitated. "I'll handle it as soon as possible," Jason assured. After leaving Cheaping, Father sighed in the car. "Roxie, Jason is under a lot of pressure, you need to be understanding." "I know, Dad." I held Father's hand. "He's my husband, I'll support him." Father smiled gratifiedly. My daughter truly married the right person. If he knew the truth, would he still say that? That evening, Jason returned home very late. I waited in the living room, seeing his exhausted appearance. A trace of reluctance flashed in my heart. But soon, recalling his words, my heart hardened again. "Why aren't you asleep?" He sat beside me, his voice weary. "Worried about you." I poured a cup of warm water and handed it to him. "Is the company issue serious?" He took a sip, "A bit troublesome, but it'll be resolved." "I believe you." I snuggled into his arms. "Right, how's the investigation on White Cat's share acquisition?" His body stiffened slightly. "Still investigating, should have results soon." I closed my eyes, feeling the rise and fall of his chest. If time could rewind, how I wished this embrace was real. The next day, a bigger blow came. Several key clients of Cheaping Group suddenly announced termination of cooperation, citing loss of confidence in Cheaping's operations. Jason's face grew increasingly grim. He began suspecting someone was sabotaging behind the scenes. "Investigate thoroughly," he roared in the office. "Someone must be targeting us." The assistant said tremblingly, "President Jason, we're already investigating, but the others' methods are very covert." "Then keep investigating. Dig 3 feet deep to find the mastermind." I listened outside the door, my mood complex. "Jason, you've finally tasted being plotted against." At that moment, Winnie hurried in. "Jason, are you okay?" She rushed into the office with a worried face. I followed in, wearing a perfect smile. "Winnie, why are you here?" Jason's expression softened upon seeing her. "I saw the news and worried about you." Winnie approached him. "Is the company issue serious?" "It's okay, can be resolved." Jason patted her hand. I stood aside, quietly watching this scene. "Jason, why not temporarily stop that plan?" Winnie said softly. "Now Cheaping is in dire straits." "No." A ruthless gleam flashed in Jason's eyes. "White Cat's shares are a must-have for me." My heart skipped a beat. Even at this point, he was unwilling to give up. "But..." Winnie wanted to say more. "No buts." Jason interrupted her. "This is our only chance, we absolutely cannot give up." I cleared my throat lightly. "Am I disturbing you?" Only then did the two notice my presence. "Roxie, when did you arrive?" Jason was somewhat flustered. "Just now." I walked over, naturally linking his arm. "Winnie, thank you for caring about my husband." Winnie's face was somewhat unnatural. "It's what I should do, we're friends." "Yes, friends." I smiled even more brightly. That afternoon, I received an unexpected call. "Miss Roxie, I am one of Cheaping Group's shareholders." A stranger's voice came over the phone. "I have something important to discuss with you." "What is it?" "About your husband, I think you have the right to know the truth." An hour later, I met this mysterious shareholder in a cafe. He was a middle-aged man in his 50s, wearing gold-rimmed glasses, appearing very scholarly. "Miss Roxie, my name is Howard, I'm an old shareholder of Cheaping." He handed me a file bag. This contains all evidence of Jason acquiring White Cat shares. I took the file bag. Why tell me this? Because I can't stand his methods. Howard sighed. The business world is indeed competitive, but using emotions to deceive is truly despicable. I opened the file bag. Inside were a pile of contracts and transfer records. In black and white, it clearly recorded how Jason planned the acquisition of White Cat step by step. Additionally, Howard continued, his relationship with that woman named Winnie is not as simple as it appears. What do you mean? Winnie's true identity is the illegitimate daughter of Green City Group's chairman. Howard's words were like a bolt from the blue. She approached Jason to help Green City annex White Cat. My hand trembled slightly. So, this wasn't just Jason's revenge, but a trap jointly designed by two groups. And I was the calculated prey. Miss Roxie, are you okay? Howard asked with concern. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to calm down. I'm fine. I closed the file bag. Thank you for telling me this. What do you plan to do? I stood up, a cold smile curling at my lips. Of course, to repay in kind. After leaving the cafe, I drove directly to a secluded place. There parked a black Mercedes, with Leon sitting inside. Got the materials? He looked at the file bag in my hand. I nodded, more complex than I imagined. Leon took the file bag, quickly scanned it, a flash of anger in his eyes. Beast. He slammed the file shut. Roxie, you've suffered. What's the use of saying that now? I leaned back in the seat, better to think about what to do next. Proceed as originally planned. Leon started the car. Tomorrow is White Cat's shareholders' meeting. By then, it will be their doomsday. I looked at the night view outside the window, my heart without a ripple. Jason, Winnie, the game should end. The next morning, White Cat Group's shareholders' meeting convened as scheduled. Dressed in a black business suit, I sat in the main seat of the conference room. Father sat beside me, looking somewhat tense. Roxie, are you sure this is okay? He whispered. Rest assured, Dad. I patted his hand. Everything is under control. Shareholders arrived one after another. Jason appeared on time. He looked much more haggard, but his eyes still gleamed like a wolf's. Fellow shareholders, this emergency meeting is convened today because the company faces a severe crisis. I stood up, my voice clearly resounding throughout the conference room. Someone is maliciously acquiring our shares. There was an uproar below. Who is so bold? Could it be Green City Group? How much has been acquired now? I raised my hand to signal silence. According to the investigation, the mastermind is among us. Jason's face changed slightly but quickly returned to calm. Roxie, do you have evidence? He stood up. You can't accuse casually. Of course there's evidence. I took out the file bag, and it's irrefutable. I distributed the materials from the file bag to each shareholder. As they perused them, the atmosphere in the conference room grew increasingly tense. Is this real? One shareholder looked at Jason in shock. President Jason, can you explain this? Another shareholder questioned. Jason's face completely changed. These materials are fake. Someone is deliberately framing me. Fake? I sneered. Then do you dare swear in front of everyone that these are all fake? Jason opened his mouth but couldn't speak. At that moment, the conference room door was pushed open. Howard entered with several people, one a lawyer, another a notary. Everyone, I am Howard, also one of White Cat's shareholders. He walked to the center of the conference room. Today I want to announce an important message. Mr. Jason colluded with Green City Group, attempting to maliciously acquire White Cat Group. Here are complete recordings and transfer records. As the recording played, Jason's conversation with Green City Group's chairman came through clearly. How is the plan progressing? Very smoothly. That stupid woman Roxie knows nothing. Good. Once we gain control of White Cat, your reward will certainly not be small. Rest assured, don't you trust my work? The voice in the recording was indeed Jason's. The entire conference room was silent. Now, do any shareholders have questions? I scanned around. Mr. Jason, do you have anything to explain? Jason slumped in his chair, his face pale as paper. I. He stammered, unable to form complete words. After the shareholders' meeting vote, Howard announced, Mr. Jason is immediately removed from all positions at White Cat Group and will face legal action. No. You can't do this to me. Jason suddenly raged, Roxie. I'm your husband. I looked at him calmly. From today, we have no relation. You can't treat me like this. He tried to rush over to grab me but was stopped by security. Jason, my voice is cold as ice, do you think only you can scheme against others? What do you mean? He widened his eyes. Want to know why Cheaping suddenly faced a crisis? I smiled, because I arranged all of that. Impossible. Jason exclaimed, how could you have that capability? Because I've never been the naive girl you imagined. I approached him, Jason, you've lost. Jason was taken away by security, shouting as he left, Roxie. You'll regret this. Watching his back, my heart was without a ripple. Regret? What I regret is having truly loved you once. After the shareholders' meeting, Father held my hand. Roxie, was all this arranged by you? His eyes full of shock, when did you become so formidable? Dad, I'm just protecting our family business. I held his hand. Some people are worthy of trust. Some only deserve destruction. Father looked at me deeply, finally nodding. You did right, Dad supports you. That afternoon, Winnie stormed into my home furiously. Roxie. You bitch. She pushed Mary aside, rushing straight to the living room. You ruined Jason. You ruined us. I was having afternoon tea, seeing her, I almost laughed out loud. Miss Wen, please mind your language. I elegantly set down the teacup. This is my home, not a place for you to run wild. It's all you. If not for you. She tried to rush over to hit me but was stopped by Mary. If not for me what? I stood up. If not for me discovering your conspiracy, could you have succeeded? We have no conspiracy. Winnie still quibbled, it's you who deliberately framed us. I clapped my hands. Mary handed me a tablet. Then how do you explain this? I turned the tablet toward her. The screen played an intimate video of her and Jason, time-stamped on our wedding night. Winnie's face instantly turned ashen. How do you have this? My house, my surveillance, I record what I want. My voice carried sarcasm. Winnie, or should I call you Miss Green City? She panicked completely. You know everything? I know everything. I approached her, including your true identity, including all your plans with Jason. Then why didn't you expose us earlier? She asked desperately. Because I wanted to watch you self-destruct. My smile was colder than a demon's. Now, you've got what you wished for. Winnie slumped to the ground, completely losing her fighting spirit. Roxie, you're so ruthless. Ruthless? I looked down at her. Compared to what you did to me, this is nothing. You made me lose my true heart, nearly lose the family business, nearly anger my father to death. My voice grew colder. Now, it's time to pay the debt. That evening, news broke of Cheaping Group's involvement in commercial fraud scandal. Stock prices plummeted, partners withdrew funds one after another. Jason overnight turned from a business upstart to a despised figure. And Green City Group, implicated in this scandal, faced investigation by relevant authorities. I sat in the living room, watching the TV news report, my mood unusually calm. Mr. Leon is here. Mary reported. Leon entered the living room, seeing my calm demeanor, a trace of heartache flashed in his eyes. Roxie, are you okay? Very well. I turned to look at him. Thank you for helping me so much. No need for thanks between us. He sat beside me. What plans next? Start anew. I leaned on the sofa. Forget those people and things not worth remembering. What about Jason? Him? I smiled, just a loser, not worth my time. Leon looked at me deeply. Roxie, you've changed. People always grow. I closed my eyes, the current me is the real Roxie. A month later, Jason was formally prosecuted. Charges included commercial fraud, malicious acquisition, forging contracts, and more. I testified in court as a victim. In the courtroom, Jason looked utterly haggard, his once spirited demeanor gone. Defendant Jason, what is your defense to the above charges? The judge asked. Jason looked up at me, eyes full of complex emotions. I plead guilty. His voice was so low it was almost inaudible. The entire courtroom fell silent. Are you sure you want to plead guilty? The judge confirmed again. Yes, I plead guilty. Jason's voice was firmer, everything was planned by me, unrelated to others. Watching him, an indescribable emotion surged in my heart. Even now, he was protecting Winnie. Truly ridiculous and pathetic. Defendant Jason, given your good attitude in pleading guilty, the court sentences as follows. The judge began pronouncing. Ultimately, Jason was sentenced to 5 years imprisonment and to compensate White Cat Group for economic losses of $80 million. After the pronouncement, Jason was led away by bailiffs. Passing by me, he suddenly stopped. Roxie, his voice hoarse, I'm sorry. I didn't turn back, nor respond. Some hurts, can a sorry compensate? Exiting the court, Leon waited outside. How many years? He asked. 5 years. I replied calmly. Too light. Leon frowned, such a person should be sentenced heavier. Enough. I got in the car, 5 years is sufficient for him to understand some truths. Roxie, are you still feeling sorry for him? Leon's voice was tense. I shook my head, not sorry, just feel no need to exterminate. He showed you no mercy. I know. I looked out the window, but I don't want to become like him. Leon said nothing more, silently driving me home. Back home, I received an unexpected call. Miss Roxie, it's Winnie, I want to meet you. Winnie's weary voice came over the phone. We have nothing to discuss. I was about to hang up. Please. She cried, I have something very important to tell you. Half an hour later, I met Winnie in a cafe. She had lost a lot of weight, her face pale, completely without her former radiance. Roxie, thank you for seeing me. She said with red-rimmed eyes. Speak, what is it? I asked directly. I want to tell you a secret. She took a deep breath, about Jason's secret. I'm not interested in his secrets. I prepared to stand and leave. Wait. She hurriedly stopped me, this secret concerns your safety. I sat down, what do you mean? The reason Jason treated you this way isn't just business competition. Winnie's voice trembled, there's a deeper reason. Make it clear. Your father did participate in the Xiaogo village demolition project back then, but Jason's parents didn't die because of the demolition. Winnie's words accelerated my heartbeat, they were deliberately killed by someone. I widened my eyes, what? The real murderer who killed Jason's parents was from Green City Group. Winnie continued, but they framed your father. Why tell me this? I looked at her suspiciously. Because I was deceived too. Winnie cried bitterly, I thought I was helping Jason get revenge, I didn't expect we were all Green City's pawns. My mood was extremely complex. If what Winnie said was true, then Jason was also a victim. Do you have evidence? I asked. Winnie took out a USB drive from her bag, this contains recordings from back then and some files, all secretly recorded by me. I took the USB, why give it to me? Because I want to atone. She lowered her head, I know I did many wrong things, but I don't want more people hurt. Green City will continue to retaliate against you, you must be careful. She grabbed my hand, Roxie, no matter how much you hate me, please protect yourself. With that, she stood and quickly left the cafe. I held the USB, sitting there in a daze for a long time. Back home, I inserted the USB into the computer. The content shocked me speechless. The recording clearly captured the conversation between Green City Group's chairman and his subordinate. Have those two stubborn WA family members been dealt with? Dealt with, very clean, looks like an accident. Good, remember, if anyone investigates, say it was White Cat. Understood, we've prepared fake evidence. Besides the recording, there were some bank transfer records and traces of forged documents. Everything pointed to one fact: Jason's parents were killed by Green City Group, and my father was just the scapegoat. My fingers trembled as I shut down the computer. So, we were all victims. So, the pain Jason endured these years was built on lies. Thinking of his guilty plea in court, my heart inexplicably ached. Jason, if you knew the truth, what would your reaction be? The next day, I went to the prison with the USB. Jason sat in the visitation room, seeing me, a flash of surprise in his eyes. What are you here for? His voice was calm, but I could hear the fatigue. To show you something. I placed the USB on the table. What is it? The truth about your parents' death. Jason's pupils contracted instantly. What do you mean? I roughly recounted the USB's contents. As I spoke, Jason's face grew paler. Impossible. His voice trembled. Impossible. This is from Winnie, she said she was deceived too. Watching his breakdown, my heart was indescribably complex. Jason, we are all victims. Victims? He smiled bitterly. Then what about what I've done to you these years? Call it retribution. I said calmly, just retribution on the wrong person. Jason covered his face with both hands, shoulders shaking violently. After a long time, he lifted his head to look at me. Roxie, what should I do? His eyes full of despair. I ruined us, ruined everything. What's the use of saying this now? I stood up. Jason, I came to tell you the truth, not to forgive you, but to not let you live in lies anymore. Do you hate me? He suddenly asked. I stopped, without turning back. I hated once, but not now. My voice was light, because hating someone is too tiring. Roxie. He wanted to say something. Take care. I interrupted him. Hope in 5 years, you become a better person. With that, I left the visitation room without looking back. Exiting the prison, I deeply inhaled fresh air. From now on, everything between Jason and me is over. 3 months later, Green City Group was thoroughly investigated for multiple violations. Chairman Charles and his confidants were all arrested. Winnie, as a tainted witness, cooperated with the investigation. The entire business world was shaken. I sat in the office, watching the news report, my mood unusually calm. Justice may be delayed, but never absent. President Roxie, Mr. Leon is here. The secretary knocked to report. Leon entered the office, holding a bouquet of white roses. Congratulations, Roxie. He placed the flowers on my desk. Green City Group has finally fallen. This isn't my credit alone. I smelled the floral fragrance. Without your help, I couldn't have done this. We're partners. He sat opposite me. Now White Cat's stock price has hit a new high. Your father must be very happy. Yes, he said yesterday to give bonuses to all company employees. I smiled, the first heartfelt smile in a long time. Leon looked at my smile, a gentleness flashing in his eyes. Roxie, there's something I want to tell you. What is it? I need to return to the UK for a while to handle some business. His voice hesitant, about half a year. A wave of loss surged in my heart, but on the surface, I nodded calmly. Work is important, I understand. When I return. He hesitated. Talk when you return. I interrupted him. Be careful on the road. Leon looked at me deeply, ultimately not saying what was in his heart. After seeing Leon off, I stood alone by the floor-to-ceiling window in the office, watching the bustling traffic outside. Life seemed back on track, but my heart felt empty. Returning home at night, Mary told me someone sent a package. Inside was a letter and a bank card. The letter was from Winnie. Roxie, when you see this letter, I may have already left this city. I know I made many mistakes, hurt many people, including you and Jason. This card has some money I've saved over the years as my compensation. I'll go to a far place to start anew, and hope you can forget me, this sinner. I'm sorry, truly sorry. Looking at the letter, my mood was complex. Winnie was also a pitiful person, used without knowing. Now she's finally awakened, it's better late than never. I locked the bank card and letter in the safe. Some money I won't use, but won't return to her either. Consider it her price for her mistakes. A month later, I received a call from the prison. Miss Roxie, Jason's emotions are very unstable in prison. The doctor says he may have depressive tendencies. The guard's voice was worried, he keeps wanting to see you. I was silent for a long time, I'll consider it. After hanging up, I sat there in a daze. I'm not unconcerned about Jason's situation, but I don't know how to face him. Though our grudges are settled, the hurt is done, not erased by simple forgiveness. That night, I told Father about it. Roxie, if you want to go, go. Father patted my shoulder, some things need closure. But Dad, he hurt us. Child, Father's eyes full of love, in life, the most important is a clear conscience. If you feel you should go, then go. Father's words made me decide. The next day, I went to the prison again. Jason had lost much weight, no light in his eyes, looking listless. You came. Seeing me, a glimmer flashed in his eyes. Heard you're ill. I sat down, how do you feel? Nothing, just can't sleep. He smiled bitterly, closing eyes recalls past things. Let past things pass. Looking at his haggard appearance, my heart inexplicably softened. You have 4 years, reform well, strive to get out early. Get out to do what? He self-mocked with a laugh, I have nothing left. At least you're alive. I said seriously, alive, there's hope. Roxie, he suddenly looked up at me, if time could rewind, would you still marry me? I was stunned, no ifs. I know no ifs. His voice light, I just want to hear your answer. I was silent long, finally answering, if you had told me the truth back then, if you hadn't revenged that way, perhaps we'd have a different ending. Unfortunately, I chose the stupidest way. He closed his eyes, Roxie, you'll be happy, right? I will. I stood up, you will too, if you're willing to let go of the past. I'll try. He nodded. Leaving the prison, my mood was unusually light. Some words said, some knots untied, one can truly be free. Jason, hope you can truly start anew. And I, too, will start my new life. Half a year later, Leon returned from the UK. He brought back surprising news. Roxie, I acquired a tech company in the UK. He said in my office, I want to invite you to develop with me in the UK. Go to the UK? I was somewhat surprised, why? There are broader markets, more opportunities. He approached me, moreover, I want to be with you. Looking at his serious expression, my heartbeat inexplicably quickened. Leon. I know you may not be ready now. He gently stroked my cheek, but I'm willing to wait, until the day you completely emerge from the shadows. I held his hand, are you really willing to wait? A lifetime. His voice firm and gentle. At that moment, my heart completely melted. Give me some time to consider, okay? Of course. He kissed my forehead, I'll always wait for your answer. That night, I talked long with Father. Dad, if I go to the UK, what about you? Silly child, Father smiled, I'm not a kid, I can take care of myself. Besides, the company is developing well now, it's time for me to enjoy leisure. But. No buts. Father held my hand, Roxie, Dad's greatest wish is to see you happy. Leon is a good child, if you truly love each other, bravely pursue happiness. Dad. Tears welled in my eyes. Go, child. Father wiped my tears, Dad supports you. The next day, I called Leon. I agree. His surprised voice came over the phone. Really? Really? I smiled, but I need a month to handle company affairs. No problem. I'll wait for you. After hanging up, I began arranging company affairs. White Cat is developing well now. I can entrust part of the business to professional managers. Moreover, I'm not completely leaving, just going to the UK to expand new markets. While I was busily preparing everything, the prison called again. Miss Roxie, Jason wants to see you one last time. The guard's voice was heavy. He says there's something very important to tell you. What can't be said over the phone? I was somewhat impatient. He says it must be in person, and this is the last time he'll trouble you. I was silent a moment. Okay, I'll go tomorrow. The next afternoon, I went to the prison again. Jason's mental state was better than last time, but his eyes still showed deep fatigue. Heard you're going to the UK. He said directly. I was surprised. How do you know? Prison has news too. He smiled bitterly. News of Leon acquiring a UK company spread widely. Yes, I plan to develop there. I said frankly. Congratulations. His voice calm. He's a good person, he'll take good care of you. Looking at him, I didn't know what to say. Actually, I called you to give you this. He took a letter from his pocket. This is my apology letter to you, but more importantly, there's a secret inside. What secret? About Green City Group still having a fish that slipped the net. His expression serious. Chairman Charles's eldest son Mason, he's abroad, not caught. My heart tightened. Will he retaliate against us? Very likely. Jason nodded. This person is more vicious than his father, with no bottom line. If he knows you're going to the UK, he might harm you there. Why tell me this? Because you were dragged into this vortex because of me. His eyes full of guilt. Roxie, I've hurt you enough, can't let you be hurt because of me again. I took the envelope, mood complex. One more thing. He continued, I've transferred all remaining assets under my name to you, as my compensation. I don't want your money. I wanted to return the letter. Not for you. He shook his head. For your father, he's worried too long about our matters. This is my small token. Looking at him, I suddenly felt this person unfamiliar. Is this still the cold-blooded Jason? Roxie, his voice light, be careful when going to the UK, report to police if anything happens. I know. I stood up. Jason, thank you for telling me this. No need to thank me. He shook his head. I owe you. At the door, I looked back at him. Jason, reform well, strive for early release. He nodded. You be happy too. This time, I truly bid farewell to the past. Back at the company, I immediately told Leon this news. Mason? He frowned. This person is indeed dangerous. I heard about his deeds when in the UK. What to do? I was worried. Don't fear. He held my hand. I have ways to deal with him. That night, Leon made many calls. I heard him conversing in English with different people, tone serious. Early next morning, he told me, I contacted some friends, they'll help us. What friends? Government department friends. He smiled mysteriously. Mason's little moves in the UK have long been monitored. Really? I somewhat disbelieved. Really? He nodded. The UK government is always strict with such international criminals. He thinks he's hidden well, but exposed long ago. Sure enough, good news came that afternoon. Mason was arrested by police in a London hotel, charged with illegal entry and intimidation threats. He'll be deported back. Leon told me, and domestic police are waiting for him. Solved so quickly? I still disbelieved. The wicked have their grinders. Leon embraced me. Bad people will eventually get their due punishment. At that moment, I truly breathed a sigh of relief. From the day Mason was caught, our lives became completely peaceful. A year later, Leon and I held our wedding in a London church. Though a simple ceremony, I felt unprecedented happiness. Father came specially from home to attend my wedding. Seeing his smiling face, I knew he was genuinely happy for me. Roxie, you've finally found true happiness. After the wedding, Father held my hand. Dad is proud of you. Thank you, Dad. I hugged him tightly. Without your support, I couldn't have reached today. Silly child, Father patted my back. This is all what you deserve. On the wedding day, I received a special gift. It was a letter sent by Jason from prison. The letter was short, just a few sentences. Roxie, congratulations on finding true happiness. I performed well in prison and may be released early. After release, I'll go to a place far from you to start anew. Hope you're happy forever. Jason. After reading the letter, my mood was calm. The person I once loved and hated has finally truly exited my life. I burned the letter, letting past pains turn to ashes. From now on, I only look forward. On the wedding night, Leon and I chatted late in the hotel suite. Roxie, do you regret marrying me? He suddenly asked. Why ask that? I was surprised. Because I always feel, if I had returned earlier, perhaps you wouldn't have suffered those pains. His eyes full of guilt. Don't think that way. I gently stroked his cheek. Without those experiences, I wouldn't have grown, nor cherish current happiness. You really think so? Of course. I nodded firmly. Leon, let's not think of the past, cherishing now is enough. He hugged me tightly. I'll love and protect you with my life. Me too. I whispered in his ear, I love you, Leon. That night, we slept embracing, hearts full of aspirations for the future. Post-marriage life was happy. Leon was attentive to me. Our company developed well. Half a year later, I was pregnant. When the doctor told me, I was so excited tears flowed. This child came at the right time. He is the crystallization of Leon and my love. Leon, knowing the news, was happy like a child. I'm going to be a dad. He spun in the room. I'm going to be a dad. Stop spinning, I'm dizzy watching. I laughed, pulling him. Roxie, thank you for this huge surprise. He kissed my forehead. I must be a good dad. I believe you will. I stroked my still flat abdomen. Our child is happy, with such a good dad. During pregnancy, Leon cared for me meticulously. He made nutritious meals daily, accompanied walks, told stories to the baby in my belly. Sometimes I felt he was more nervous than me, the expectant mom. Roxie, who do you think our child will resemble? He lay by my belly asking. Of course like you. I touched his hair, best if as smart as you. I hope like you. He said seriously, as kind and beautiful as you. If a girl, like me. If a boy, like you. I laughed, that would be best. 10 months later, our son was born. The little guy looked much like Leon, but eyes like me. Looking at his pink little face, my heart melted. He's so beautiful. Leon held the son carefully, eyes full of love. What name shall we give him? Let's call him Ian. I thought, hope he has a safe life. Ian. Leon repeated the name, good name. Father came specially from home to see the grandson. Seeing little Ian, he was so happy he couldn't close his mouth. This child is so smart, eyes so bright. Father held little Ian, will surely succeed later. Dad, do you want to stay longer here? I suggested, help us with the child. Sure. Father agreed immediately. I was thinking to accompany my grandson more. Thus, our 3 generations lived happily in London. 3 years later, little Ian could walk and talk. He was smart and cute, our family's joy. That day, I was handling files in the company. The secretary rushed in. President Roxie, someone claiming to be Jason wants to see you. I was stunned. Jason? Yes, he says he's out of prison, wants to see you one last time. My mood was somewhat complex. Jason was out and found here. Let him in. I took a deep breath. Minutes later, Jason entered my office. 3 years of prison life changed him thoroughly. He looked much older, but his gaze peaceful. Roxie, disturbing your work. He sat opposite, voice calm. How did you find here? I asked. Your father told me. He smiled bitterly. After release, I visited him, wanted to apologize in person. Did he forgive you? Forgave. Jason nodded. Your father is tolerant, more than I imagined. We were silent a while. What do you want here? I asked. Want to see you, formally apologize. He took a small box from his bag, then returned this to you. I opened the box. Inside were our wedding rings from back then. Why keep it? I was puzzled. Because it's my only memento. His voice choked, but now I understand, some things not mine should be returned. Jason. Roxie, I'm sorry. He suddenly stood, bowing deeply. Sorry for everything I did to you back then, sorry for making you suffer so much. Stand up. I also stood. Let past things pass. I know you won't forgive me, nor do I expect it. He straightened. I just want you to know, these 3 years, I've regretted every day, reflected every day. That's good. I looked at him calmly. People always pay for their mistakes. Yes. He nodded. I paid the price, also learned life's principles. What plans later? I asked. Go to New York, find a small town for quiet cultivation. No former hostility in his eyes. I want to thoroughly cleanse my soul's stains. That's good. Roxie, he looked at me last. Wish you happiness. Wish you find inner peace too. I replied. After Jason left, I sat there in a daze for a long time. Looking at the ring box on the table, I recalled many past events. Those years of love and hate now seem like a dream. Dream awakened, everything passed. Returning home after work, Leon was playing blocks with our son. Dad, how to build this? Little Ian asked, holding a block. Like this. Leon taught patiently. Watching this warm scene, my heart full of warmth. This is the life I want, simple and happy. Mom's back. Little Ian saw me, immediately ran to hug my leg. Was Ian good today? I picked him up, kissed his cheek. Very good. Dad says I'm smart. The little guy said proudly. Yes, our Ian is the smartest. I said, smiling. Leon approached. What's wrong? You seem in a bad mood. Nothing, just recalled some past. I leaned on his shoulder. What past? Unimportant past. I shook my head. Now I just want to cherish current happiness. That's good. He kissed my head. Let the past pass, we look forward. I nodded. That night, I put the ring box in the deepest drawer. There also Jason's apology letter, Winnie's compensation card, some past photos. These are marks of my youth, though painful, part of my life. I won't discard them, but won't let them affect my future. Closing the drawer, my heart completely relieved. From now on, I belong only to now, to this home, to Leon and our son. 5 years later, we had a daughter. The little princess looks like me, but character like Leon, very gentle. Brother loves sister, always protecting her. Watching the 2 children play in the garden, Leon and I sat aside enjoying afternoon sun. Roxie, do you regret marrying me? Leon suddenly asked. He's asked this many times, each time I give the same answer. If we do, I'd still choose you. I held his hand, because you gave me true happiness. Me too. He looked into my eyes. Roxie, I love you. I love you too. I replied. In the distance, the 2 children's laughter came, crisp like wind chimes.